Okay, this is our piece of aluminum, and what we're going to do is we're going to take, and we have to, the bandsaw doesn't cut a nice perfect cut. It does sometimes at a little bit of an angle. It doesn't square it up perfectly. So we have to take and machine those two ends. All right. Okay, this is the engine lathe. I'd like you to go ahead and sketch this in your sketchbook, and we'll label the parts as we go through this video. All right. And this right here is our engine lathe. Let's take a quick tour through this. This here, first of all, over here on the end here is a tailstock. That's going to slide right along this bed. If you take a look at this bed right here, and this tailstock works something like this here. As I turn this clockwise, this little spindle over here comes out. So here it is here. This moves back and forth. Okay. Up here at the end here is our tool cradle, and this is going to have our chuck key. This is our chuck key. The chuck key will go into the chuck. This is our chuck right here. All right, with a 3-jaw chuck. If you take a look at it, there's three jaws. And as I turn these, they close the jaw. The jaws are closed in. All right, counterclockwise opens it, and clockwise closes it. Okay, this chuck key should never stay in this chuck. Once you're done with it, take it. Always keep it in your hand and put it back into the tool cradle. Okay, we can use drill bits in chucks like this Jacob ball bearing super chuck, a really nice one to have. And it has a taper on the end, and we'll talk about the Morris taper coming. We have a live center. This is a live center. We'll talk about that. Help for support. And then, of course, we have some other chucks. But this right here is my center drill for countersinking. That's a special drill bit. So we want to see that being used once we machine down the end piece. This whole thing is a carriage. It's made up of apron and a saddle. The wheel that I'm turning is the carriage hand wheel. It'll move right along the bed. All right, the next wheel is the cross slide hand wheel. It moves the tool across in front of the chuck, and it'll go in that direction. This is my tool post. I just loosened it up. I slide these out. There's a dovetail cut in them. This holds my tool. This is my insert right here. You can see a diamond-shaped insert. That diamond-shaped insert is what does the cutting. This is an adjuster here. I want to adjust the height of my tip of my tool to be as close to the center as possible. And you can see how that just slides down on there, and then this has got to be locked. And this should not move. So it's my tool post, my tool holder, my tool with the insert. Okay, next is the compound rest and the hand wheel, and it moves according to a degree that's set on the cross slide. To see if that tool should be right in the center of this. You can see how we start machining some of this down. But it looks like the tool didn't come right to the center of our piece. So we want to make sure that this height of this tool is in the proper position. It should be in the height of our machine. Well, we take our center, our live center, and we slide it all the way into the 3-jaw universal chuck, and we tighten it up with our chuck key. Okay, so now we got that point. That point of the end of the live center indicates to me that that is the dead center of the machine. Now, if you take a closer look at it, you can kind of see that our machine, our tool is not set to the right height. So if I bring that in there and I take a look, I need to lower this down. This tip has to match up with that tip. So over here, we got right here, if you look, I got an adjuster right here, okay? I gotta loosen this up. My tool post counterclockwise loosens, Now this can be adjusted. Okay, so how do I do it? First of all, this set bolt or nut right here, I'm going to lift up since I have it, and I can start turning this counterclockwise. And if you notice, my tool is now starting to come down to where it will be matched up just right on the center there. Okay, so if I take a good look at it, and I'm still adjusting this down. All right, I rotate it in a little bit. All right, and I want that to be perfectly centered. So I'm going to loosen this up a little bit more. All right, something like that. Okay, and then now I got to take and tighten up this nut. I want that to stay steady. I want this to be perfect. Okay, you can see how close I am. It looks pretty decent. That makes all the difference when you go to machinist. Now you're taking, you lock this down, and then this tool and everything on here is now tight, and it's set to the dead center of the machine. This end is called the headstock. This holds the spindle. This is my spindle we were just looking at. But this whole thing up here, this top half, if you notice like this black line goes right around the top, this is for setting my spindle speed. If you take a look right here, it says spindle speed. And then there's, if you look here very carefully, there's A, B, C. All right? And there's 1, 2, and 3. Up here, I have a selector A, B, C. And then I have another selector 1, 2, 3. So based on my spindle speed, okay, if you take a close look here, we are going to be operating with this piece of aluminum, is always going to be operating at an 800 revolutions per minute. That's what the spindle turns at, 800 revolutions per minute. And so if I look here, very carefully, look close, I looked for 800. So there's 270, 1400, 200, 1600. There's a couple different combinations, but I looked for 800, so I need 3, and I need A3. So what do? I take my selector, and I move it to A3. Now, if it doesn't move like that, I usually just rotate the spindle around, and I can get it into the gear I want. Okay. This is a reset button, so that may be pushed in. It won't work unless you turn it and release it. There's a power switch. This is the inching. I just push that, and I can inch. All right, this here is my feed. There's two things you have to be concerned about when you're doing this. One is my speed of my spindle that's up here, and then the other one is how fast I move the tool. And that's set down here. So it's called the speed and the feed of cutting and machining apart like this aluminum bar stock. It's aluminum bar stock, 1-inch bar stock, and this is a piece we're going to make our handle on. So here, what we have here is some pins. These pins come out and they go in these holes right here. There's some holes right across here. There's a set over here. If you notice, the board is divided in 2 sections. So this says positions A, B, C, D, and E. All right, so let's take a close look at that. There it is. There's my positions. And if you look down here, I got these pins. This starts with A, B, C, D, and E. All right, so on my chart over here, it says threads per inch, A, B, C, D, E. Now, to get the second setting is a number across the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's really cutting threads, but we also can use it for cutting speed. So I can set my feed according to this. So when we do a fine cut or rough cut, if we're in the D and 6, we're 48 threads per inch. So what would I do? I would take my... Okay, now we need to make the adjustments, and sometimes moving those pins can be a little bit of a challenge. You might have to use the inching button. Sometimes that inches the machine just enough to get the gears lined up. We need to find the D, and then we need to find the 6. So there's not numbered down below. You just got to count and make sure you get in the right spot. Again, a fine cut, finish cut is going to be like a D6. A rough cut is going to be like a B3 or B2. Let's move on to the next thing, mounting the material into the 3-jaw universal chuck. Okay, let's take and put our material into the 3-jaw chuck, universal chuck, and let's tighten this up. And we're trying to machine down the rest of this. We can see that it needs to be finished up. So let's put that in here. Again, I go to 2 spots on the chuck. Okay, and I put the chuck key back into the